Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more Hemi-Sync podcasts, such as Episode 8 with Dean Radin, podcasts that aren't necessarily associated with any particular Hemi-Sync product, but simply feature fascinating guests and subjects associated with the frontiers of consciousness research and understanding, please consider joining our exclusive Patreon page and get some great discounts on Hemi-Sync products in the bargain. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for joining us for the Hemi-Sync podcast. We're joined today by Jackie Haverty, who is about to release her first Hemi-Sync album entitled Journey to the Fifth Dimension. Jackie has spent her entire career in the service of others, whether it be as a social worker, a counselor, a hypnotherapist, a teacher, a healer. Jackie has always been trying to help others discover what is best in them. In particular, Jackie is known for producing a number of intuitively guided meditation exercises that you might find on Amazon.com or on her YouTube channel or her website. So I'm pleased to bring you Jackie Haverty.
It's been many, many years that I've been on this path, I guess you'd say. A lot of it hasn't been so much in my work experience. It began many years ago when my first husband passed away, and he had a near-death experience to begin with. And even before that, when I was a child, I was having all kinds of different experiences. But this one, with his death, really precipitated me forward. He was not into any of this, of course, and neither was I so much at the time, except for my weird experiences that I had nobody to talk to about. But when he had a near-death experience, he was really, it changed his whole personality, who he was. And then he went through a horrible death just 5 years after that. And he just knew where he was going, and it was a horrible death in one way, but it was a great death in another way, because he knew exactly where he was going to go, and he was happy about it. He actually had a happy death, so it was really interesting, and that precipitated me, because at that time, then I started reading everything on near-death experiences I could, and so I was able to understand a lot. And at that time, I was working for social services in child protection and adoptions. And then I started really changing my viewpoint of everything and wondering why these things happen. Why do people go through such horrendous experiences and things like that? And so with those books, I really understood. And then I started getting into other books and, all different types of channelings and especially Cryon. I loved Cryon. He was my first one. And I had all these experiences. I'd be walking along a country lane, where I lived at the time was up north in Dawson Creek. And I would have these experiences of love. All of a sudden I'd have this love hit my heart. And it was overwhelming. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know what to think of it. Tears would come to my eyes. I didn't understand where it came from. At first, I thought it was somebody loving me, or was I loving somebody to that extent? But it would keep coming up like this, and it was very spontaneous. So, and there's a million other experiences that I had. And it kind of goes back and forth, because I did live in the States for about 13 years. And that was before I moved back to Canada, to northern BC. And I met a single parent there. I was a single parent at that time. Mm-hmm. And I met another one. She had 2 daughters. I had 2 daughters. We went to college together to get our degrees and so on and so forth. I was non-traditional. My whole life has been non-traditional. So we became very good friends. We became best friends, and she was an animal communicator. I didn't know it at the time, and I don't think she really knew it. She knew that she could communicate with animals, but she never put any words on it, because it was just a natural thing for her to do. So I could keep going on with this. How much do you want me to do?
No, I think that was helpful. So these spontaneous experiences of love, so those didn't happen to you prior to your husband's difficult death. I take it that was a new experience after his passing.
Actually, no, that was that was after his passing, and when I was living up in Dawson Creek, BC. I had moved up there. I had moved back to Canada. He passed away in the States when I was down there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had moved back to Canada. And so this was a couple of years later, that this started happening.
So that's very interesting because when a loved one goes through a difficult death, it can oftentimes be as difficult for the people that are going through it with them and the people that they leave behind as it is for the
Right.
actual person that's experiencing it firsthand.
Absolutely.
And it seems like it can either really shut down any sort of interior experience for the people that are left behind because they feel like they can't trust the universe or they lose faith in God or, however they might describe it according to their own belief system. But for you, it was kind of the opposite experience. And
Yes, it was.
yeah, so what do you think it was about it for you that created this huge opening for you?
Well, because I kind of experienced that with him, and then I read all those books, and it really hit my heart. I really knew that it was true. I had no doubt about it whatsoever. So my experience then was to look inside myself because I knew that everything was within me. Somehow I had these knowings. And so that's when I started really searching inside. And it wasn't just that. It was like, I was walking on a hill one time. I was taking my dog for a walk, and I'm up in northern BC, and all of a sudden I went into an altered state, and the grass, the trees, the ground, everything, the sky, everything around me, even my hands turned to like molecules, atoms, molecules, just vibrating. Everything was just vibrating, and at that time, I looked over to the left and I saw myself, I'm an observer as well as the person that I was looking at laying there on the ground dying. And I knew that was me. And I knew I kept saying, put me in the sun, lay me in the sun. I want to see the light when I die. I want to see the light before I die. And I remember seeing 5 men, or what I felt was 5 men around me with shovels. So I thought, well, I was either in an earthquake or buried somehow, and they had, dug me out, whatever, and I wanted to be placed in the sun. And then I saw my girlfriend where I was living at the time, and she was holding my hand, and I was laying there, and all I could see was her bright blue eyes looking into my eyes. And she was looking down at me as I was laying on the ground. And she said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." And then we went together. Now, I don't know, and I haven't talked to her since because I moved from there. I don't know if she was already on the other side and was helping me over. And I know that we were supposed to work on the other side. We had gotten this message previous to that. Or if she was on this side and had been there with me. Anyway, that was just one of my experiences. I went to her house the next day and I told her what had happened. And all she did was grab me and we both started crying. She said, "I had the same experience last night, exactly the same." So it was really interesting. And I've had so many of those types of experiences. And I moved continually. I was always moving. And I remember my guide saying many years ago, pack lightly, because that was my path, constant moves. So with that, I want to say that I never had or maintained a business because I did a lot of stuff for free when I was always taking courses because I really wanted to discover what was inside of us. But I never maintained a long-term business because, after I left social services, I moved again. And I had a lot of clients, but they were free. They were friends of friends and people that I knew. And I would just do it for free because I loved doing it. And I started doing it just with my intuition, through my intuitive abilities, and just doing the energy work and the chakra balancing. And then these guides would come in and be working with me. I could see them, or they would give me a message for the person on the table. Sometimes the angels were there. I would see them around. Another time, a young boy I was working with, he had his grandparents come in, and I didn't know they had crossed over, but they had, and they gave him a message through me. So I worked in many different ways, and I worked with a transpersonal hypnotherapy as well. I think I mentioned that before. And the reason I got into that is because I really knew that there was a better way of healing people and helping people, particularly when I was working with social services and the ministry and the children and the families, that needed so much help. I knew there was a better way to do that. So that's when I really went into that and started learning about it and taking training in it and everything at that time. I really... Go ahead.
And so how has your work and your extraordinary experience informed these exercises that you produced, many of which are on YouTube or on Amazon, and some people have been experiencing for years? How did that kind of lead to those?
Well, when I was with my best friend in the States, after a while, when I moved back to Canada, she started having a lot of problems down there. And she was running the Humane Society, and she lost everything. So I said, well, come on up here. I've been learning this hypnotherapy, and maybe I can work with you and see what's going on. So she came up, and I started working with her. And the very first time, she started channeling. And it was amazing, and it was an amazing experience. And she went to a place called the Crystal Palace, and she explained it to me. I didn't tell her about it or anything. I never even knew it existed at that time. This was like 30 years ago. And she explained that's where she met her guides and angels, and she, as she was channeling, she would explain what it looked like. And my guide was there. And that was the beginning of so many conversations with our guides and angels. And I was still getting that information as well, but it was through the head and not so much, well, it was through the heart as well, but I just knew things. And so I'd write these scripts of the Crystal Palace and the different things that I did for the CDs. It was all my own experiences, except for the beginning and the ending, was typical hypnosis stuff. But the middle of it was the stuff that I put in it was my own experiences, and I really wanted people to experience what I had experienced and what the guides had said and through the channels and everything. And I just knew. I just knew how to do it, So I decided I'd do it, and I made 5 of them.
Yeah.
And then I just started moving again. And finally, when I retired, I just kind of gave it up. So now I'm just channeling with groups, just bringing in that energy.
Gotcha. And so the Crystal Palace is featured in this Hemi-Sync exercise. And then you also take us to the 5th dimension. Can you tell us a bit about what that represents?
Okay, the 5th dimension is actually, we're there, but we don't quite know it yet. Some of us understand it. It's a place of complete love, unconditional love. And, most people don't really know what unconditional love is because they have expectations, they have conditions on their love. Something happens to a couple or family members or whatever, and, they get into judging each other. In the 5th dimension, there is no judgment. There is only unconditional love. Everything is love. And what they're teaching now, which I didn't have at the time, is that everything you look at outside of yourself, everything, regardless of what it looks like, is made from love, is produced from love. So the 5th dimension is this, and this is exactly where we're going. We're kind of on the bridge now, going back and forth. But the fifth dimension is that pure unconditional love will be in, compassion. There will be no illness in the fifth dimension. And that's why I made that, to help people resolve and transform their illnesses, their mental problems, their emotional problems, so that they could transform that to the light that they are, because everything is light and love. And if they could transform that through that crystal palace and through that table, that beautiful table, and have this beautiful light coming through them and transforming that and bringing it back in their body, the beautiful transformed light, that's what we're doing. We're here as transformers of that light. So I wanted to make that for people so that they could create that fifth dimension in their own space, in their own hearts, and become that.
Lovely. So this really sounds like a name that you've given to some of these experiences that you've described, feeling yourself touched in your heart, or experiencing yourself as love walks in nature, or experiencing yourself as molecules or particles of light. This is all kind of fifth dimension.
Yes, it is. It is very much so. Very much so. Yeah, it's fifth dimension, but we're actually going from fifth, and when we ascend, we'll actually be going into the 12th dimension, because the 12th dimension is that area, that space where we overlook all 11 dimensions. It's like our soul, our soul self, call it our higher self, whatever. But it's looking over all those 11 dimensions of us, because we are in 11 dimensions. But all of that is within us. And we keep, looking on the outside of us to create. And it's the creation, everything. We're our universes. We're multidimensional inside of us, So I think that's the most wonderful news, that there's no going backwards. We're already experiencing this in so many ways. So, yeah.
And so, what are the significance of the dimensions between 5th and 12th?
I'm not sure. I have to say that, because I just know that I didn't study that part of it, but I just know that the 12th dimension is the perspective of everything, and having that beautiful perspective that everything is on purpose and everything is love and expanding. We're just expanding and expanding. We can go into the 9th now. We can go into the 10th. We can go into the 11th, because we are that. We exist in those dimensions too. And it's like there's aspects of us that exist in multiple dimensions and multiple realities, and those aspects of us we can go and visit even at this point within this fifth dimensional energy. We can draw in those energies, draw out, I guess, if everything's inside, we can draw those energies within us to change us, to help us expand who we are, because we are multidimensional and we live in all of those dimensions. It's an expansion of who we are in those dimensions. We're perfect. We're imperfect here, but with all of those dimensions, we are perfect.
So I'm curious, how much of this dimensional understanding comes from a received wisdom, and then how much of it comes from sort of a teaching lineage, and what is that lineage?
Well, it's mostly from my own experiences, because I know I can see myself. I know I'm in a different dimension there. And also, it's the experiences melded with my guides. I call them Adonai. It's like a huge angels, angelic beings, or whatever you want to call them, but it's that energy. And they teach me, and my girlfriend as well, and we had multiple conversations personal conversations with her guides, my guides through her. That was years ago. So this has been going on for years. But they're really teaching people about the love and about non-judgment, and how we judge ourselves, and how we need to quit judging ourselves, whether it's killing a bug or whatever. They talk about everything outside of ourselves and how we judge it. And this is where we're going in the fifth dimension. So all of this is kind of melded together.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like a trajectory that's happened throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of melded together into these beautiful, wonderful light beings called Adonai.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has been created for this path. And some of it has been, especially the transpersonal hypnotherapy, has been taught to me, and I've taken a lot of energy courses and so on and so forth, but I've never worked with any of them specifically. I take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and what I know, and kind of meld it together into my intuitive ways of helping people, and that's all I've done.
I do a lot of that too. Yeah, you take what serves you, and you
exactly, and what serves the person on the table, because it's them that's going to be doing their own healing.
Right.
You're just opening the doors.
Right. And so, one of the other things that you reference in this exercise is this concept of 12 strands of DNA. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Well, from my understanding, the 12 strands of DNA are the 12 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
They're within the 12 dimensions, and we have two, and we're going into the 3 strands within the 5th dimension. We are already doing that. And, Adonai has been saying lately that we think of the children that are being born now, they're amazing children. So many of them, they're already melded with their interdimensional selves and those 12-dimensional DNA. They already understand that they have them inside.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see them, so they're really hard for scientists to recognize them, but we know that that's where we're going. And when we get to the 12th dimensional DNA, we'll be there. We'll be ascended. We'll be light beings. We'll be beings of crystalline light. So that's the way I understand it, as sort of dimensional.
Gotcha. And so in this model of reality, what are kind of the physical dimensions, and then where does the non-physical start?
The physical is form. It's of earth only, and we are spirit. We are energy. We are light. Everything is light. Even the plants, the animals, the rocks, the earth, everything is light. And it's just frequencies of light, and we are, I guess, on 3D, low light, or, a denser frequency of light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're expanding into, is more and more light. So we are of the earth. Everything in our bodies is in the earth. So we are physical forms that will stay on the earth, except for ascension. That's going to be another few years, another couple hundred probably, maybe. I don't know. We're going pretty fast. It's us that are creating it. So the physicality is what is on the earth. We'll be part of the earth again. Same with everything else. I don't know how to define that. We're spirits. I think we're spirits having a human experience. We're beautiful lights having this wonderful human experience, learning to create and to expand and to grow. So that's what I see us as. And our physicality, our senses, we are to love and to laugh and to enjoy and to see things and to taste things and to experience. This is our experiences on earth, our senses, So this is what we're here for.
Yes.
To expand that.
Yes. and to do these exercises.
Yes, exactly.
I think the guided imagery on this exercise is really lovely, and at least helped me to really have an experience that felt very vivid. And your voice has a lovely quality to it as well. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, and
That was a few years ago.
strong with lovely voice. But I think people are going to enjoy this. Thanks a lot for
Thank you.
recording Journey to the Fifth Dimension with us. And we look forward to
You're
everyone's
most
feedback.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm honored to be part of this.
Thank you.
Simply honored.
Thank you. Well, I hope we can chat again. And
Thank you.
thank you all for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thanks, Garrett. Bye-bye. Take care.